Right now there's I like to call it a bridge race. Started really a lot in earnest about 50 years ago, and will be about for another 50. We're pretty much almost in the middle of it right now. There's a bridge race of beings that is different than the humans who've been here, and not quite fully what the humans will be, say, 100 years from now. And so they have a different brain configuration. They have different DNA. They have a different consciousness.
Are they here now?
Oh yeah, many of them are here now.
In other words, these are children being born now.
Yeah, and some of them are older too. I mean, some, like I said, they started around 50 years ago, more or less. And so right now, a lot of the kids coming in are like this. Some call them indigo, some call them star children. I don't like to use those kind of kitschy names, but they're very different.
You think they're going to run the world differently? They're going to make it a better place?
Yeah, well, it's up to all of us, really. But and a child shall lead them.
Yeah.
So
out of the mouths of babes and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's wise for parents to really pay attention. It's always been wise for parents to pay attention to their kids, but now more so than ever, because these kids are coming in with a consciousness that's just so amazing. They have a wisdom that's like never been seen. And they just see things and know things.
So what do you think they're going to bring to this life?
Well, they're going to bring more equity, more fairness, more honesty, more integrity, and obviously more unconditional love, more forgiveness, compassion, patience, and a lot of wisdom.
One of the things the angel Gabriel did say was that by 2012, he said that corruption was going to be on its way out. Now, how that's going to happen, I don't know, because,
It's already happening. It's not out completely, but it's going fast.
There's still a lot of politicians out there that are corrupt.
Yeah, but look at the headlines. Look at how many downfalls are happening.
True.
Look at how many, 300 to 500 banks a year are closing. The real estate market's crumbling. Now the energy's moving into insurance, which most of it is completely corrupt. The medical profession is under scrutiny now, so totally corrupt. Where there's corruption, the light is moving in and really, really burnishing. So it's happening. And if you look at the headlines, there are downfalls of empires day after day. And the flip side of that is new people are coming into positions of visibility and power, people who have, a really pure motive and a really pure intention to help others and to serve the greater good and to have a greener, more eco-friendly planet, or to do something to serve the greater good and not just to serve themselves and live off of greed and usurp everyone else's autonomy and freedom and assets and,
Only caring about themselves and not anybody else or whatever becomes of anybody else.
The focus has to go outside the self to become something greater than the self. And people who have that in many different capacities, the light is moving, the divine is moving energies and money and power to these people, knowing that they will help the masses, they will help the greater good. And the people who are just focused on taking and taking and taking and serving themselves, these people are losing their empires and losing their fortunes. Or having awakenings. Just boom. We've seen that happen. We see it happen a lot. Billionaires just saying, I'm giving away everything I have. Just wake up one day, and we have a couple of them who did that. Ted Turner did that, and who are the two now, the two billionaires that started that club asking all the other billionaires to give away half their assets.
Well, it's the truth. If some of these people, what are they going to do with all this money? And if they were charitable with the good portion of their assets, they would make the world a better place.
And there's nothing wrong with being rich. That's another fallacy in the spiritual movement.
No, there's nothing wrong at all, no.
A lot of people, because of what religions have polluted our minds with, thinking that poor is holy and rich is dirty, which is not true by a long shot. Holy is holy,
That's right. And a lot of people think that it's wrong for me to ask God for money, for riches. No, it's not bad. You can ask God. You could say, God, hey, I'd like to enjoy myself a little bit. You think you can help me out here? Let me have a little windfall from a good place, not necessarily from a bad place, like somebody has to die before you, whatever. But win a lottery, get a really good job that pays well, things like that. There's nothing wrong with asking for these things.
No, not really, but there is a higher question. The golden question to ask God is, how may I serve you, Lord?
That's true.
That's the question that gets you the most riches.
Right.
That makes the richest people on earth.
Yeah, well.
Because as soon as you come to the altar like that, without asking to be given, but asking to serve, it reminds me of that famous quote of JFK. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Right,
It's the same thing. It's, Don't say, God, gimme, 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 gimme. When you come to the altar like an innocent child and say, how may I serve you, Lord? There's this 180 that happens, and the divine says, oh my God, all she wants to do is serve and take care and help. Let me just give him everything. Let me give her everything. Here, I'll relieve you of your material needs. I'll relieve you of your wounds and make you disease-free, because I got a player here. I got a player. When people are just coming to rob from the coffers, it's not the same thing. Is it okay to ask? Yeah, it is. But the golden question that'll get you the most riches is, how may I serve you, Lord?
And mean it.
And mean it, yeah. And then being willing to walk your talk. So, again, it's like I said before, tail wagging or feet dragging. There's a certain destiny where the world is headed, and no one really has a say anymore. And this is really what 2012 is all about, is that the human race now is having a spiritual awakening, whereas up till now, this is the difference between then and now. Up until now, the spiritual awakening process has always been individual, and it's still individual, but the human race as a species, as an animal, is having its collective awakening. So it's different now. Now it's no longer an option.
Collective consciousness?
The whole collective is spiritually awakening, and that's what's happening in this 2012 window, is that the planet, the race of humanity is entering puberty. It's having its spiritual awakening, and it's no longer an option. So tail wagging or feet dragging, we're going for the walk through the park, whether we like it or not. So we can either surrender and ride the horse like a gallant knight, or a lady in waiting, or we can resist and fight and be dragged with our foot, with our foot in the stirrup and be dragged down the rocky road. But there's no stopping this spiritual awakening, because it's a point in destiny of the human race, of the species.
No matter who you are, no matter what you think.
It's happening. And those who resist strong enough will just have to leave, because, again, the vibration is going higher, and they just have to leave until they can evolve to come back in and play by the rules. So that it's becoming less and less possible to use the gift of free will in non-accordance with God's will. So it's like the bank's calling in its loans. The divine bank is saying, okay, you cannot use the gift of God's power for non-loving uses anymore.
In other words,
those who do it will suffer.
You can't do bad things. You can't steal. You can't kill anything or anybody, or be cruel or anything like that. You have to walk the straight and narrow according to God's will.
Well, there's always been karma, and there always will be, but that law of balance, that you reap what you sow. But now this collective awakening has changed all the rules. It's accelerated the laws of karma, and it's made it no longer an option. It can't sustain anymore, because the vibration of the planet's going so high so fast, which is awesome.
You think more and more people are starting to understand then?
Yeah, people are seeing it. More people are realizing that, this my way or the highway thing just isn't working. It's causing nothing but pain and suffering in my life. I just had a conversation with an individual yesterday. I mean, I'm just using an example, but one of many, where this individual sat down with me finally after so much fighting and just said, you know what? I realize that I'm swimming upstream here. I have this agenda of what I want to happen, and I've been so stuck in it and so unwilling to change and unwilling to really listen in my heart to what God wants of me rather than what I want for my life. And he said, I'm really worn out. I'm tired of fighting. I realize that my plan's not working. So I'm now open. I can't say I'm surrendered, but I'm now open to hear, editorial replies here. So that's a good sign. So when you ask me, am I seeing more of that? Yeah. People are getting worn out by their fight, because they're seeing the cost is so high.
Yeah, well, sometimes you look around at people and you say, when's this one going to wake up? Because you see that they continue to do the same things over and over again, and they get the same result, and yet they still continue to do it the same way, thinking they're going to get a different result, and they don't. So then you say, when is that one going to wake up and realize that they're just spinning their wheels?
Yeah, well, hopefully that's only a momentary reflection. I mean, ultimately, I like to think of just seeing everything as perfect, because we're all on the page we're on, and we need to just, it's up to us to love and accept everyone exactly where they are. That's unconditional love. And, and not expect or have judgments of them. I mean, you can have that observation like, wow, this person's just ramming his head against a wall.
Right.
But ultimately, we are supposed to see that it's all perfect. I mean, I had to have my dance, and I had to have my years of resistance And maybe I'm surrendered now to God, but, I had all my years of willfulness when other people might have looked at me and said, boy, are you stubborn, boy, are you willful. So we're really all exactly where we need to be, and it's all unfolding exactly as it needs to be. So, that's how God views it. So
Even the suffering and everything else that goes on.
it's all perfect. It's all part of the plan. Because at the level of the absolute, none of it's real. Only love is real anyway. This is just like a little Truman Show going on here.
I mean, like life is but a dream.
Yeah, shaboom, shaboom. It is. It's just a big hologram. So we have to just take it a little more lightly. Just be able to laugh at our circumstances and at our human foibles and at how willful and stubborn we can be, and take things a little more lightly. And then even that creates more of an opening for the divine to reach us and whisper in our ears and sing to our hearts to, call us in a little more.
So what do you see then for the human race going past 2012 and into the years ahead?
Well, I see that the rate of spiritual awakenings in people is going to continue to happen, but so many more and so much faster. It's going to really, really be like the oil's on high on the burner and the popcorn kernels are going like, pfft. The awakening is going to happen really, really fast. And you'll continue to see, with this spiritual awakening of the race, you're going to see many more, and this started really in the 90s a lot, another renaissance, which has already happened in the last 10 to 15 years, but another one, even bigger, a renaissance of new inventions, innovations, technologies that will replace the outdated ones. Like, for instance, the fossil fuel thing, this whole battle and argument that's just so beyond, it was ridiculous 20 years ago. Now it's just, absurd. But, 20 years from now, it'll be gone. We won't be using fossil fuels less than 20 years from now.
What do you think we're going to be using?
There'll be other things. Well, there's some of the things we see now, but there'll be new ones that come. Ways of using solar, ways of using wind, ways of using water, ways of using
I know, I heard
hydrogen.
about water, yeah.
There'll be all kinds of things, and ones that haven't even been discovered yet. But again, in that openness, in that willingness, they'll come. They'll come. And that's already begun. You see, I remember talking back in the 90s about my Sanskrit name is Pranananda, which prana is the life force that keeps us, that sustains our immortal bodies. I started talking about, and it's a big part of my teachings now, spiritual nutrition with high prana foods, that I teach people to get onto a lot of high prana foods, and then you need less dense food and less food, period, and yet you need less sleep and you have more energy. And I was saying back in the 90s that there's going to be a wave. There was a particular moment, I can't remember the date right now. I said after this period, an opening happened on a given date. There was in the celestial realm, there was an opening that happened, like a portal opening into the human collective. And I was saying how all these foods that no one knows about are going to come, these superfoods. And in the last 10 years, they've appeared. Acai, goji berries, aloe vera, which was already here. These all were already here. Gac fruit. There's these foods that are just astounding.
All the antioxidants.
And they have these super healing abilities, will come to the forefront, and people will be taking them and have more energy, need less food, and discovering other foods that were looked at as common, that now we discover, wow, well, look what we can be eating. And now there's another wave that's going to be happening in the next couple of years, where these new technologies will not only come into the limelight, but they'll actually now be adopted. That's one of the things you're going to see, a little of it in the next 2 or 3 years, but the resistance is still so high. You're going to see a lot of it between 2012 and 2015. You're going to see a lot of these things adopted, and then the old ones will be purged out soon thereafter.
What kinds of things, like new inventions and things replacing old inventions? Modalities
in surgery, modalities in healing of the human body, the replacement of the fossil fuel industry, hopefully the final banishment of this nuclear power atrocity that's destroying the world.
Well, hopefully we won't need it.
No, we won't. We certainly won't. And also, it kind of goes hand in hand. Not only will they come from this, but this will also be a byproduct, is the awakening of the dormant abilities. Some people call it paranormal, in some circles they call it siddhas, your divine powers. But these dormant abilities that we all have as divine beings, scientists say we use 4 to 6% of our brain's capacity. A lot of what's in that other 94 to 96 will be awakened and available in right now in this window of acceleration, this is happening. And a lot of the children, you talked about how are they different, a lot of them are coming in with those gifts from birth. Whereas a lot of people, they acquire them later in life. They have an awakening, a near death, and a spiritual epiphany, and something happens. The children now are coming in with them, and they don't have to go through the tragedy, the trauma, the cancer, the near death, the car accident, the flatlining to come back with these gifts. They're being born with them. Telepathy, psychic, empathic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, telekinetic. These kids are coming in with this stuff.
Wow.
And we all have these abilities. So in the next decade, you're going to see a massive wave of people being born with them and people awakening into them and being able to develop them like this. And those gifts in turn will help create and facilitate these new technologies. The ability to do healings just with your hands without tools that many people have. So this is awesome stuff.
Oh, sure is.
So when people say, I want to go, I said, man, this is the hottest ticket in town. There are beings from all life streams and planets wanting to come here. Earth is the hottest ticket in town. People shouldn't be wanting to leave. I said, go where and do what? This is the most exciting time to be alive ever. To see leaving the age of darkness and coming into the age of enlightenment. I mean, what else? What more fun show could there be?
Well, it's true, and to be present for things like that, sure.
Yeah, and to think that we chose this. I mean, you chose your birth.
Yeah.
That we chose that 100-year window to live in that. All the orchestrations that had to happen and the divine maneuvering that we had to do and God had to do for us and things we sped up and slowed down to be here in that window.
It is an amazing time,
It's
sure.
awesome. It's the ultimate.
Yeah.
It can be difficult, of course, because that much change that fast, humans because they're live in fear, they're very controlling, and that much change really rocks people's boats and rocks their foundations. But that's where the surrender comes in. You just throw your hands up,
Yeah.
You picture yourself like in a kayak going down the white water. If you're stiff and rigid, you're going to smash. There's a part of you that has to kind of surrender and yield to the flow of the river, and then
Sometimes that's a scary feeling, though.
It is
because
scary. Well, it
I went tubing one time, and the river just taking me like that with no control, and I almost drowned too. One of my friends here helped me out there, which was good because I might not be here now if not for him. But but I remember that feeling of hanging onto the tube and the water just taking me and saying, I don't like this. I don't have any control over where I'm going,
the human mind is just cannot stand not being in control. I mean, it's just its mission statement, it just has to be in control all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
But that lives in direct opposition to the divine, which is all about surrender, just surrender, take me, Lord, show me.
In some
God.
ways, we have no choice but to surrender because there's just nothing else to do.
Well, we're having less and less choice now, as I said.
Yeah.
So the earth is doing that for us, taking our choice away.
Yeah.
I heard one person once describe free will as choiceless choice. We have a say, but not really. We think we do.
Choiceless choice, huh? If you have to dwell on that a little bit and chew on it. Think about what that might mean.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, well. So so now let's get back to, for a little bit, talk about what actually happens now when these people do leave us. Where do they? I mean, you said, all right, we're not going anywhere, but they go into another. They drop the flesh, the flesh and bone body, and they have an immortal spirit that does something, goes somewhere. That you said, okay, you see all these people when you pass, and you see all the guardian angels and guides and this one and that one and whoever. But what do you do after that? Do you work? Do you float around? Do you go visit people?
Well, all of the above. I was describing that before. I mean, a lot of people have to go to these healing retreats for a while to reconcile
This
a lot
is
of
on
things.
the other side now.
Yeah. And then at some point you recreate more of your journey. But again, we are everywhere at all times. So even while we're embodied, like you and I are here now, but your soul is many, many different places doing many things.
Now.
Absolutely. But the thing is, our human consciousness has a very linear focus. We're trained to live in the experience of our 5 primary senses, which are actually our lowest, densest senses, as beautiful as they are. But we're trained to believe that that's all we are. What you can see, hear, feel, touch, taste, smell, is all you are. But that's not true. This is what we're doing right now, me and you sitting here and our human bodies talking, is the least of what we are. I mean, not even 1% of the totality of who we are. So when you finish your embodiment, all the rest of that stuff is still going on. Like that thing, that other fallacy about people, you often hear this with, a widow or a widower. Oh, I just want to go be with my wife, want to go be with my husband, and now we can be together. And there's not this big holding tank somewhere where people die and they wait for their partners to come. Mm-hmm. This thing that humans have been trained to believe is just so absurd.
But they do see their partners on at some point.
Absolutely. But you can see them now. You don't have to be miserable for the next 30 years so you can see your husband in the waiting room waiting for you. Oh, honey, you're here. God, I was really getting ready to leave, It's like, whoa, we were going to close. Where are you? We're running out of coffee.
Well, how do we see
you
our
can talk to them now.
But you can talk to them now, but
the more, the world is taught seeing is believing. That's the ultimate fallacy.
Yeah.
Believing is seeing. Seeing isn't believing. Seeing is fear. Fear. I won't believe until I can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, hear it. That's illusion. When you believe, you'll see. Remember Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Believe that your Father's there. Believe that He's with you. Build the field. And everyone called him crazy. And he did, and he sat there. Okay, I got a baseball diamond in a cornfield. Now what? And he had no clue. But he believed the voice he was hearing, even though he didn't know whose it was. And his Father appeared. So seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. And then the more you believe, the more your strengthened faith will manifest again and again and again. So, I had this one woman, this sweet little old Italian lady she was married about 48 or 50 years, and her husband passed. And she said to me, she followed the tradition of, put him in the cemetery, which souls can't stand and God can't stand and Mother Earth can't stand. It's one of the grossest pollutants on the planet, but that's another discussion. But she said, I feel really weird. I feel like in my Italian tradition, I'm supposed to go to the cemetery. But she said, I don't want to go there. I don't like the feeling there. Something doesn't feel right. And I told her, I said, well, he's not there in the first place.
Right.
So he's not there at all, and he can't stand it. If you go there, he'll come there because you're there, not because he's there.
Uh-huh.
He goes where you go. So if you really want to feel him and experience the sweetness and the love in your marriage, do remember or experience the things you shared and loved the most. And theirs was sitting like this for Italians, it's always around the dinner table with your coffee and toast and talking. And so I said, sit at your breakfast table where you spent 48 years and about 15 hours of every day with him sitting there. I said, that's his favorite spot, in your house, in your whole life. I said, that's where you'll feel him more strongly than anywhere else. And so she did, and she said, oh, wow. Now, she still goes out of her duty as, obligation. She still goes to the cemetery once in a while, but she doesn't feel him there. She just goes because she thinks she has to. Mm-hmm. So, like, she's a bad person if she doesn't. She's dishonoring him. But when she started doing this, she said, oh, my God, and now he talks to her, and she feels him, and they have communication, and she sees him. She smells him. And
she sees him?
Yeah, sometimes. And she feels him touch her when she's sleeping. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he wakes her up. If she sleeps past her alarm, she'll feel his hand touch her shoulder and smells him, hears him, can smell. We all have, our bodies have a scent. She sometimes smell him walk by. But if she just kept going to the cemetery all day, none of that would have happened. None of it. Mm-hmm. She would have just been there like an automatron. I'm at this, something like that Dunkin' Donuts commercial. Time to make the donuts. She just, I'm at the cemetery for 8 hours every day wearing my Italian widow black and just ending my life. Mm. Well, the souls who depart
don't want us to do that.
Oh, it breaks their hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, it breaks their hearts to see people throw away the rest of your life,
because you missed them.
Yeah, and this woman didn't actually. She started a whole new life, and and I know he had a hand in that.
Sure.
I mean, she did her perfunctory, her obligatory 1 year in mourning. That's like Italian law, in black and don't go out. She did that. But not even a year. She just said, you know what? She goes, I don't think this is what he wants. And if he were here, he'd be screaming at me at the top of his lungs, don't you dare do this. You keep living.
Yes.
Because I live with you. I live through you.
Right.
If you pull me into that morose, depressed place, now I have to suffer in that because I'm your life partner. I'm going to be in that with you. So is that how you're going to spend the next 20 years? And she's living. And again, and that makes her feel him more.
Yeah.
It makes her feel him even more.
Yeah.
Because now he's enjoying that with her.
Well, just like with my friend Frank that I was telling you about earlier, I sometimes feel his presence. I do. I do. And I know that if I'm shedding a few tears, he's sad to see me doing that, and I try to stop. Because he doesn't want me to do that.
Why not?
To cry?
Crying is healing. Crying is the best thing you could ever do in the world.
Yeah, but not constantly or you know.
As much as needed.
As much as needed, yeah, but
It depends the place you're crying from. I mean, if you're crying like in just collapse and hopelessness and despair and that your life is over, that's not healthy. But crying itself, the instrument of crying, is one of the single most powerful healing tools there is. And again, that's a fallacy. The world believes that crying is weak, crying is wrong, crying is bad. Did a little Elmer Fudd there. Crying is wrong. Yeah. So, crying is not weak.
Like him too.
Crying is not weak. It's the strongest, most courageous, most powerful healing thing you can do. Worst thing you can ever do to a human being, and especially a child, stop them from crying.
Right. Yeah.
Tap them.
You do feel a little bit better when you're all done. And
oh my God! You should always encourage any cry to go to its completion, because every cry knows how long it needs to go. Your soul knows how much it needs in that moment. If you let it go, it'll have its own natural end.
I see.
And you'll feel so amazing.
You do feel better.
Never shut down a cry on anyone, especially yourself.
Okay. In the meantime, our time is up. It was a very interesting conversation. I mean, it was beautiful. And
thank you for having me back.
Oh, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, and you'll come back again, I'm sure.
I would love to. Thank you so much.